readers,
reviewers,
wolves,
and us your ears. Welcome back to the channel, or for the very first time. I'm not sure Nelly qualifies as a wolf.
Sorry, I'm more like an Arctic fox.
Yeah, so do you want to hold it for a second?
That went in the tumble dryer.
You just called her a wolf. I think that's a compliment, isn't it, Nelly? You a wolf? Oh, yeah. So today we're going to be talking about our second half of our favourite books of 2022. Ed read 123 books in 2022. I read 107, a total of 230, and we had to cut it down to 10.
And
but
how
we
many
cheated.
did Nelly read?
We cheated a little bit and had 3 honourable mentions. Nelly read 47 books, actually. And we'll be talking about... That's why she's in the video. Yeah.
They're only about vets.
Exactly. But before we get... She read James Herriot, every single book. Every single All Creatures Great and Small book. But before we get into the very serious part of assigning those spots to our favourite books, we've got an award to give, and it's about the best puppy of 2022, and that's why Nelly is present. So Nelly, well done.
Sharpest teeth.
Being the only nominee for
and if
best
anyone
puppy of
wants
2022.
to know what Storm looks like from the Faith and the Forest,
Yeah. It's like how the Rings of Power made Huon a Afghan.
Who had 35 seconds to talk about the Silmarillion?
Dear.
No,
it's about Rings of Power, but
you don't have to mention it in every conversation.
It wasn't in every conversation. I didn't in the opening, did I? But anyway, let's get into what this video is about and talk about our favourite books of 2022, starting from our 4th favourite read of 2022. Shall I kick it off? As you've got...
Well, let's get rid of this one. See you later now.
See, now I'm sad that Nell's gone, but we're going to be talking about some of our favourite books, so that should raise my mood. And so the number 4 spot for me is... It was my penultimate read of 2022, and it is A Storm of Swords Part 1 and Part 2. It's the wrong way around for me, but it might be the right way around for the camera. I don't know. But anyway, but it's split. It's such a big book, it's split into 2. And A Storm of Swords is the 3rd instalment of A Song of Ice and Fire, a series that needs no introduction by George R.R. Martin. And probably the majority of readers who love Westeros and A Song of Ice and Fire say that this is their favourite instalment, and it's actually been defiled a bit by Nelly. Actually, good reason she's gone.
Yeah, you sure you weren't doing this to it?
She savaged. No, Ed, I wasn't.
We all know what you do.
What did you just do?
Yeah, I was reenacting.
Ed just did it worse than I have ever done.
I was reenacting.
And yeah, so Nelly savaged a few of the pages.
I was reenacting.
She was really upset with what George R. R. Martin did to some of her favourite characters.
She is Ghost.
She was deeply affected. And so, yeah, I thought it was really great and I loved it.
Very nice. And the first one for me... Wait, are we doing honourable mentions?
Not yet, no.
Oh, no. I better move some things, haven't I? 4th favourite for me was Ride the Wind by Lucia St. Clair Robson. And if you are a viewer of the channel and if you've been watching it for the last 8 months, probably, this book has been one that I've mentioned almost in every video, I reckon. Anytime we do a favourite book or a top 10 or something.
And you have a go at me for mentioning the Silmarillion all the time. Double standards.
At least I'm not a desecrator of books.
I was put up to that. You told me to do it before the video started.
Pinky?
No.
Exactly, thou shalt not.
Carry on talking about your favourite books.
And Ride the Wind is a historical fiction, aka romance. Goodreads calls it, but I don't really agree with that. But it's a historical fiction set in 19th century America. A young girl called Cynthia was abducted and kidnapped by a band of the Comanche, which were a Native American tribe, and she is indoctrinated into them and then becomes one of them. It's a true story. I recommend you know, if you want to find out a little bit about it, read Empire of the Summer Moon by S.C. Gwynne, of no relation, as far as I'm aware. Or check out the Joe Rogan podcast where S.C. Gwynne is on there and he tells the story of Cynthia and Parker, which is a phenomenally just very cinematic story full of heartbreak and just phenomenal moments. And Ride the Wind is no exception. It is a book that takes the facts of history and really puts heart into it. Lucia St. Clair Robson writes with such vividness. She really knows her stuff about the way the Comanche lived, and that was probably the main reason why I picked it up. But I soon found myself
kind of that immersive element.
in love with the characters, and there is some real trauma that comes along with this book because your eyelids will be dry no more. It is it's a really, really sad book, a really, really sad story, but it's so worth the read. I really do, because it's breathtaking. It's breathtaking, and it is a sweeping tale of America, and that period of America which really, really needs to be talked about a lot more.
It does. And in the third spot for me is Empire of the Vampire by J. Christoph. This was a phenomenon when it came out in 2021, and a lot of people have been reading it in 2022. If you ever take
you need to knock me out twice.
I will be more careful. And this is absolutely brilliant. Ed talked about it in the previous part. I think it was your sixth favourite or fifth favourite?
Fifth favourite, yeah.
Fifth favourite of 2022. This is my third favourite. And so, as Ed said, it feels really iconic. The premise is that a natural disaster called Day's Death that has occurred where the sun is dimmer. And so this is obviously causing environmental crises where certain crops aren't growing and a lot of health issues. Yeah. And then on top of that, as if those woes weren't enough, now
big teeth.
Now vampires can walk about in daylight, and they're not as powerful as at night, but they are free to do so. Yeah. And of course, that's going to bring quite a few problems with it as well. And so this has a bit of that kind of training school trope, but done really brilliantly in a very unique way. And Gabriel De Leon, at times you really don't like him, at times you think he's hilarious, at times you think that he's a very tragic figure. I love how he's so complex, and J. Christoph is not afraid to keep you suspended in kind of mystery, where you only know a bit of his background, and this is a framing narrative chronicling his story where he is telling the story of his life. And so yeah, it's got those elements where you're not quite sure why he is the way he is. He's a very cynical man, and to say the least, and you're starting to realise why as you go through this story, and it really builds that relationship with him as a main character and the cast around it. And as Ed said, this just feels iconic. There are so many scenes that still, 8 months from reading it, stand out of my mind in such vivid detail. So yeah, Empire of the Vampire, absolutely brilliant. It is a chunker of a book, but it doesn't feel like that. You can blitz through this. I made myself take it slowly so I could savor every moment, but it would have been so easy to just read this in 2 or 3 sittings. Yeah. Not settings, sittings. Unless I went over, it would have been so easy to read it. Stop. It would have been so easy to read it in the living room, then outside.
At night, would you read it at night?
Yeah. There are some scary scenes as well, so it would probably enhance the fear.
I only read it in the
If you like to be terrified, then you probably won't get loads and loads of that, but there's definitely a lot of tension.
Creepy stuff.
There are 2 or 3 scenes that are very creepy.
And if you love vampire books or films, then there are so many awesome Easter eggs and references here that I think you would absolutely love it.
And a lot that we probably didn't pick up on as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Continuing with the Native American theme for me and 19th century America, we are going over to D. Brown's non-fiction, which is probably the only non-fiction book that has made its way onto this list.
And it's your third favourite.
It is my third favourite. It's called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. It was a tough one because I only wanted one non-fiction, especially with this subject in mind, on my list. And I recently read Blood and Thunder by Hampton Sides, and that was almost as magnificent. I wish it was on my list as well, because that's really made a big impact on me. But I think if I had to choose one, it would be Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by D. Brown. It really, really just showed me the appalling nature of the relationship between Anglo settlers and the Native Americans, First Nation people who lived in America before Columbus discovered it. So it really, really portrays the American West as you've never seen it before. The real, brutal, and actually true version of it that is meant to be known and meant to be read. I think this is a book that really, like I said, had a huge impact on me, and I think it's one that I would push to many, many other people to read. If you want to try non-fiction out, it's so easy to read in terms of prose style and the engaging nature that D. Brown writes in. However, it is extremely heartbreaking, and it will, really, really tear your heart out, because it is just so sad what happened to so many people, and the way that America, many parts of America, has been founded and has been built on, or what modern America is. It is, I think people need to know about it, really, because there's so much history here that I had no idea about, and many other people I talked to when I talk about this book to other people, they didn't know either. So it's a fascinating read. It's one you really can't stop reading. I would only read it kind of in chunks, really, because I had to know what happened next and what happened next in the story. It is just very sad, and That's really sad. That's all I can say, really. But Bury My
But it's
Heart
deeply
and
impacted
Wounded
you.
really, really impacted me, and I think it's made me much more mindful, definitely. And I think, you know, I'll definitely enjoy reading lots about this time period and these cultures, and it really kind of just added another layer of, you know, of that factor to how I enjoy these stories, because I feel like I know a lot more about the history now as well. You know, when I was watching The English, for example, recently, one of my favourite programmes with Emily Blunt and Chaska Spencer, which was fantastic, by the way. So many, you know, if you read this book, you would really understand the history and what they were trying to accomplish with that series as well. There were moments there that were taken in history that did actually happen, and they are written about in this book. So it just enhanced that for me, and I think it will do for you as well.
Very nice. And it's definitely one that I have high on my list in 2023. But now on to my second favourite. And this was so hard. The top two, every 10 minutes, it was changing which one I chose. And the second for me is Dreaming the Eagle by Amanda Scott. And you can tell I had quite a few thoughts on this. And it's actually your copy. So, no, they're just like magnetic bookmarks. So they're fine.
William, what have you done to my book?
Yeah.
So first you fold them in half, and now you put card on them. Are they for notes or?
Yeah. So I need to go back and just scan through.
And do what?
Done. Well, just write down what I thought was interesting at that time. Just look at them.
Anyway, tell us what.
But Dreaming the Eagle is historical fiction, and it is about Boudica. Dreaming the Eagle is the first instalment of the Boudica Quartet by Amanda Scott. This is a favourite of Papa Gwyn's and recently Ed Gwyn's as well. Yeah. Brother Gwyn's. What? With the Brothers Gwyn. Oh. Anyway, and it was absolutely incredible. This first instalment really builds that. It's a coming-of-age story. It's about those formative years. We have two leading perspectives. We have Briaca and we have Ban, and they are half-siblings. And they feel so close to each other. And it's quite a small cast, but in a very epic story. And it's kind of that increasing Roman threat as we are immersed in kind of the Celtic tribes, the Iceni, to be specific. And we feel that immersion and authenticity. And obviously you cannot get complete authenticity with periods that there's so many gaps in our knowledge. But Amanda Scott really felt like this was respectful to the cultures of the time, and as I said, you just feel immersed in this, and it feels a bit fantastical as well, but it's not. It is historical fiction, and I love how Amanda Scott really takes on in her writing style as well the real mindset and hegemonic values of this time period. Briaca is a brilliant character. The way that her story evolves and this kind of feeling of fate, how it interweaves in and out of the story, is absolutely fantastic, and I love that you've kind of got that kind of you know some things that are going to happen because of we know a bit about what happened in history, but it's about the way you get there, and there are so much that I didn't know about as well, and so I absolutely love Dreaming the Eagle. It is a magnificent sweeping story that really emotionally engages you. I cried at this, and to cry in book one of a series is quite a feat, and Amanda Scott just did it with ease. She was like, oh, you want to see me make you cry? I'll do it twice.
Yeah, she'll do that a lot. Good luck.
Yeah, so that's Dreaming the Eagle, my second favourite read of 2022, and definitely one of my favourite reads of all time.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, Will. It took quite a while to persuade you to read it, didn't it? No, I didn't.
It was just on my list. I wanted to.
And I'm glad you enjoyed it, because I know that it would be. It's a book definitely 100% very high up on your, you know, on what you would have loved.
Yeah.
And what I know of you as a reader.
Definitely, it had all those different aspects, like coming of age, great main characters, really dedicated to kind of life before it's changed by such tragic events, and an epic story of historical fiction.
And number 2 for me on the spot is The House with the Golden Door by L.D. Harper. William recommended to me the Wolf Den series, which appeared on his last video, I believe, yes. Which is...
because I've only read book 1. You've overtaken me.
You've only read book 1. I've now read book 1 and 2, and I will say The House with the Golden Door, it really nearly... Well, if it wasn't for my favourite book of the year, it would have... Obviously, it would have been number 1.
If I hadn't read my favourite book of the year, number 2 would have been my favourite.
It was a close one that I know would be number 1 a lot of years in a row, I reckon, out of a lot of books.
It's a bit unlucky this time.
It's incredibly high up on my favourite books of all time, I reckon, list.
Would it be in your top 10?
Most likely.
Top 9?
Possibly. I'm not going into this. Top 3.5? But The House with the Golden Door is, as Will said in the last video when he was describing the Wolf Den to us, it is a story of Amara, who actually, I won't really say too much about it because this is book 2. But
yeah, you can say the premise of book 1.
Yeah, and it is about Amara and a group of women who are forced to work in a brothel in Pompeii in the 1st century AD, I believe
74
it is.
AD.
74 AD. And if you know anything about when the volcano erupted, which I don't actually know what year that was, then you probably know what's happening in book 3.
Yeah, but that might not happen in book 3.
Might not
it might
happen
just be
in
set in
book 3.
Pompeii.
You cannot set a series in Pompeii and not cover the volcano.
Yeah, but Pompeii was a major city for a
I
long
understand,
time.
but you know what I'm saying.
Maybe it's just so you have that fear, and then it's like it doesn't erupt for another century.
Yeah, okay, maybe. But anyway, without the volcano threat, this book is amazing because it tackles so many themes of humanity. And Amara, the main character, is you just feel for her. You are heartbroken for her. You experience everything that she experiences, and it is just. This has some of the best villains I've ever read. There are some really hateable people, lovable people, some really grey people that you completely understand where they're coming from. And it's a story which, there's a couple of swords in it, but not really involved in the main plot. So I actually loved a book without swords. I know, pretty big of me.
Because this is historical fiction, but not military.
Exactly, not military historical fiction. It is following Amara and just kind of seeing how she plays out her life.
Tension is rife, isn't
and
it?
yeah, the tension is so much more because she can't just cast a spell like Gandalf, and she can't fight her way through people like Aragon. So she's got to just talk to people, which is awful. I hate that tension. So yeah, I probably sound like the most simple reader ever. She cannot fight her way through.
So
get to the chopper. She can't say that anymore. So, but yeah, House of the Golden Door, L.D. Harper is quickly becoming one of my favourite authors, and I cannot wait to read book 3 of this series, and also her Boudica book as well that will be coming out hopefully in a couple of years.
Yes, because she's got a deal for 2 more. I was like, what? This isn't Amanda Scott. Yeah, because she's got a book on Boudica. Is it from the perspective of Boudica's daughter?
It is.
That will be coming out, I think she's doing that first, the year after the Temple of Fortuna, so 2024.
Cool.
And then one from the perspective of Mark Antony's wife in 2025. So that would be awesome.
Cleopatra? Or?
No.
Did they get married?
Yes, but his first wife.
Who
was very politically active.
Was she?
Yeah, very powerful figure.
Well, we'll find out in 2 years.
We will. So long away. But anyway, next up, it is Honourable Mention time, because we like to cheat and mention more books. So this is technically a top 13 list. But I'll kick it off, and I will start with Babel by A.F. Kwong. I read The Poppy War, and I was a little bit disappointed. There are aspects that are brilliant. There are aspects that just did not click with me. I can see how it will click with loads of people, but sadly I was one of the anomaly, one of the minority there. But Babel is historical fantasy. Babel is historical fantasy that really just appealed to what I love. And as I said, it's historical fantasy. It is set in the Victorian period.
Historical fantasy?
It is historical fantasy. It is about a boy who is of Chinese descent. He is in Canton when his family die of a disease, and then suddenly a professor arrives called Professor Lavelle, and he mysteriously agrees to adopt this child as long as he promises to remain proficient in Chinese and learn other languages such as Latin, ancient Greek, and an array of others as well, and then apply to go to Oxford. And he goes to the translation branch of Oxford, which is called Babel. And so that is what this book is about. That's the premise. There are fantastical elements in the... I'm not going to say because
is it a standalone?
Yes, it is. There are a few characters you could carry on with, but it's perfect as a standalone. Yeah. And yes, the fantastical element is great, but I won't say much because part of the joy is having those kind of mysteries unravel and learn about them. It's a great cast of characters. You've got kind of that more intimate story amongst a grander one once again. And this is a commentary on the class system, the British Empire, colonialism, and also friendship and camaraderie and the importance of belonging. And so there's so much that R.R. Kwong does and explores organically in Babel, and it is great.
Very nice. And the first honourable mention for me is The Wheel of Ostheim by Mark Lawrence, which is book 3 of the Red Queen War trilogy. And it is a fantastic read. I think it's what season 7 and 8 of Game of Thrones should have been on TV. I think The Wheel of Ostheim is such a fantastic book. It's made me even more excited to carry on and going to read the Book of Ancestor trilogy, which is really exciting for me. I think Mark Lawrence is a fantastic writer. He's got very unique prose. His character work in this was just second to none. It was absolutely superb. And the way that he forged the relationship between Jalen and Snorri was amazing. I loved it. The humour there was just on point, and I think the way that Mark Lawrence actually had the combination of the plot was so satisfying. I won't say too much because it is book 3. It's the last book of the trilogy, but it was so satisfying. The best book of the trilogy.
So
by
the
far.
finale was the best part.
100%, and it was a phenomenal read.
Finales are so important, aren't they? Because whilst we should treat each book individually, when you look back on a series, how it ends is so important.
Yeah.
It really affects your view of the entire series, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
But next up for me is The Women of Troy, Book 2 of The Silence of the Gales, which is the sequel to The Silence of the Gales by Pat Barker. And this is one of those kind of emerging Greek retellings which focuses on the women who are so often pushed to the periphery of Greek myths, even though they are such major players. So they are often overlooked. And yeah, that is wrong. And Pat Barker has taken Briseis and really delivered on showing her perspective. And it is rife with tension and it is absolutely brilliant. We see the brutality of war, and it's really interesting seeing these major characters such as Agamemnon, Achilles, Patroclus, and Odysseus in so many different lenses. And in The Women of Troy, we expand to seeing quite a few women on the other side, the women who are of
So
Troy.
it's not after Troy?
No, this is after Troy has fallen, but obviously there's a lot about the aftermath, isn't there? And all those who survive, but what happens to them next?
You did mention Patroclus.
Yes, but I'm saying The Silence of the Girls and Women of Troy together.
Together,
And
right.
Patroclus is discussed.
Because
in
I
Women
got
of Troy.
really excited then.
No. The Women of Troy is brilliant.
Talking of Pat Barker...
Thanks for deflating the mood,
I'm
Ed.
sorry, but Silence of the Gales is my second honourable mention, and it's amazing because Patroclus is such a good character.
He's a great character.
Silence of the Gales is another book recommended to me by Will. So thank you, Will. You've kind of corrupted my reading list. Wow. Could I apply to go to Durham?
Oh, what? Because we're becoming like one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't think I'll get
Simple
on very well
answer.
there. The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker is, as Will just said, it's the story of Briseis and her relationship with Achilles and Patroclus and Agamemnon and other key players of the Trojan War. It is fantastic. It's such a melancholic read. I think Pat Barker is she's someone who has a mastery of the English language and a way to captivate emotion in a few words. And whatever emotion she wants to set out to achieve, she accomplishes. She is an amazingly accomplished writer, and I think Silence of the Girls will just...
She's won the Booker Prize before.
Well, there you go then. I think this book could easily have actually ended up on my actual favourites lists. It's one of those years where they could all move around. It could all, be shaped about, and this book could easily have sat at number 3, number 4.
It is blasphemy that it's not in the top 10.
I'm sorry, Will, but there are so many good books out there, and but I think it's one that I would definitely reread because of the enjoyment I got out of it, and it is such a heartbreaking, grueling book, really, but it's a very short read at the same time. So it covers a lot of emotions, and you go through lots of things with Briseis, much like you do with Amara in the Wolf Den series. But I will really recommend Pat Barker, and I can't wait to read some more of her.
Very nice, Ed. It's an amazing book. I highly recommend it. And in my final honourable mention spot, I have The Pagan Lord by Bernard Cornwell. This is the 7th instalment of The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell, which is better known as... Well, it's better known now as The Last Kingdom, but it is the Saxon stories. There are incredible highs to... You just got to talk, or Edward carry on saying Uhtred for a long time. There are incredible highs to this series and some lows as well. It follows a bit of a template at times, but... The Pagan Lord, I think the 2 installments before this, I was feeling a bit down with the series. But then this revived my absolute love for it, because this is kind of the stage where Uhtred's children come more into play. And I love how they have a very prominent role dominating a lot of the story. And Uhtred is becoming a bit of an older man now, and his reaction to having to think a bit more of his mind now, a bit more of his wit, which he does use before, but he can also rely on his ferocity as a warrior. So yes, he's having a bit more cunning now, and I absolutely love how that really comes into play. Bernard Cornwell really explores the difference that age makes, and that kind of the process of aging as well, how it affects you personally and as an individual, and how those perceive you as well.
Is this one with Cedric in?
Yes, yeah. That's why I said the children come into play, and I thought it was really brilliant. And Bernard Cornwell, just everything he does great. It really came together, and he really showed that in here, because I feel with some of his books he will show some aspects that he's great at, and then others it'll be the other ones, and it shows he's an incredible storyteller, but sometimes they don't all appear in one book. But this is one where it really all came together and he displayed his incredible skill as an author.
Yeah, 100%. Will summed it up brilliantly. I think Bernard Cornwell does follow a template at times, but when he moves away from his template, his books are so good. Like the Warlord Chronicles, not a single one there follows any form of template apart from the beginning of book 1, perhaps. But yeah, phenomenal read. And Bernard Cornwell's a great author, just someone I wish had a bit more individuality,
like with
times.
The Warlord Chronicles,
especially when you built up such a great character as Uhtred. You don't have to do the same thing over and over again, because it's not like, there's loads of history written down and he's doing, and it happened every year.
I know. But it's like with Sharp, he did that, and it follows a template apparently, and it's one of the best-selling series of all time.
Well, because people know that if they enjoy book 1, they're going to enjoy book 24.
Yeah.
And my third honourable mention is Beyond Redemption by Michael R. Fletcher, who is such a fantastic writer. I loved Beyond Redemption. It felt like the Great Coats if the Great Coats hated each other. That is my pitch for the book. And it is a fantastic fantasy book. It is really grim dark, but it wasn't as dark as I was imagining. It's a very different book. On Mark Lawrence's scale, which is on his blog, this is maybe the grimmest book on there, or
is what people have voted for.
It's in the top handful, definitely. Wow. And I get the characters don't get along. There's not very much hope whatsoever. It's a very violent and dark book, but at the same time, I think there was some hope at times. There was camaraderie.
I wasn't weighed down with
and
the
because
absolute...
it was so funny. Exactly, I wasn't weighed down with trauma. Basically.
Exactly, yeah. This is a great read. I highly recommend it. I think it's one of those again that lots of people would really enjoy. Oh, Ed.
You read it last?
No, I didn't. I listened to it. I didn't use your book.
That's accidentally.
Ed folds his pages as bookmarks.
It's obviously been damaged by water.
Ed, do you
Michael
fold
Fletcher,
your pages?
I would never dog my ears in your book.
Pinky promise you don't fold pages as bookmarks. Oh, he can't do it. See, he can't do it.
I've been known to, but I promise that wasn't me. That one actually wasn't me.
Should we get a book that was you?
No. Anyway,
see, assault again.
No,
so many of
Michael
these videos.
Fletcher doesn't want to see us talking about that. Okay, you're actually being really unkind.
I'm being rude.
If
I'm
authors
really sorry.
are watching this, then they're going to be upset.
He deserves
with us,
better. I was just upset for him that you defiled his book like that.
Don't tell him.
Don't tell him. But yeah, it's a great read, and that's the final of the honourable mentions. And so now on to our favourite reads of 2022.
It's a big moment.
So my number
books
one.
Did you read last year?
107, and so my number one is A Clash of Kings by George R. R. Martin. Of course, this was my Westeros year 2022. I read 3 installments of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. I read Fire and Blood, the prequel, and I watched part of the series for the first time. And I absolutely loved A Clash of Kings. The way that Tyrion really comes into his own here and becomes, even though there are so many different perspectives here, and when you look at it, you feel so engaged in characters, and then you realise they're not actually in too many of the pages because it's such an epic, sprawling story. But Tyrion, just through this, becomes one of the best characters of all time, in my opinion. And I love how the political machinations really reach a new level in this book, because Game of Thrones I thought was fantastic, hence why it was on my top 10 reads of 2022, but a lot of it is setting up what's about to unfold, and A Clash of Kings, as I said, is really taking that on and allowing it to really hit a new pace and reach a new level. And I loved how the shocks, the ramifications, the aftermath of Game of Thrones plays such a major part in A Clash of Kings, but there's so much that you don't expect, so many conflicts that you don't think will happen that occur, those that you think will occur that don't happen, and vice versa. And the revelations, this is the only book where there's a big revelation of he killed this person, she killed that person, that you're like, but is that actually true? When there's a revelation where you actually find out, you're like, that's not actually true, it can't be. And yeah, because George R. R. Martin, it feels real and vivid, where the use of misinformation is absolutely brilliant. And not many books do that. I've heard that Malazan does that, and that is one of the many reasons I'm really looking forward to reading it. But yeah, Clash of Kings does that, and it's not afraid to go in new directions. And I really see the inspiration that this has given to so many authors. It's interesting, obviously, as a younger reader. reading books that have been inspired by it before reading this, where it must have been amazing for people reading this at the time where it felt so fresh and new, and it still does, which
and
is
the end was in sight.
Exactly. Let's not talk about the negatives. Let's not talk about the negatives. But yeah, it must have been amazing thinking this is kind of a new wave of fantasy and seeing the effects it had on the genre as a whole.
Yeah.
And so yeah, my favourite read of 2022.
Very nice.
Fantastic
I look
book.
forward to reading it at some point in the future. I did enjoy Game of Thrones. But I'm not in love with it, so do you think? I enjoyed the series.
You would enjoy
so...
Clash of Kings more.
Yeah. Okay. Such a big book. And the number one read for me, which will become as no surprise to anyone, is
No,
Stickerful
don't take my
and Boudica, Dreaming the Eagle by Amanda Scott. Now, my pitch for this book, obviously William spoke about it in this video, so I won't talk too long, but I think Amanda Scott is, and this series, it has the epicness of Tolkien, it has the intimacy of Robin Hobb, it has the heart of John Gwynne, I believe. I think the heart of John Gwynne is in there through and through. The Faith in the Fallen, it really reminds me of Boudica's Dream of the Eagle.
Where? I didn't see him. I'm sorry.
You really chose.
Say it.
I had 15 jokes while you were telling us about Clash of Kings.
Oh, did
and
you?
I chose
What
to say,
joke?
no, I'm not telling. I said none of them.
Oh, in your head.
I said none of them because I thought this is William. He's just spent a lot more
Moment of
time
respect.
wanting to talk about this book.
You do talk about Dreaming the Eagle in every video.
In the words of Sharp, you bastard.
That's harsh.
Sharp said it. I didn't.
Oh, it's all right then.
Yeah. But Boudica, anyway, I don't know where I was going with it, but it really does remind me of The Faith in the Fallen, meets David Gemmell, I think. The whole Celtic vibes as well. Boudica is an amazing character. Ban is an even better character. There's so much heart. If you love animals, read this book. It's full of animals. You will probably cry, but it's full of animals. The characters are amazing. The trauma that comes along with it, that happens to them as well, is brutal, and it is horrible to read at times, but that's because you love the characters so much. If you like fantasy, if you love fantasy, if you hate fantasy, read this because you will love this. Whether you like romance or
book that
anything
transcends
else,
genre.
it transcends time. This is quantum physics. This book, it is only to be loved. I don't know what that means, but I don't know what quantum physics are. It probably sounds like a Marvel thing, doesn't it?
It is
The quantum time realm.
Yeah, it's like Ant-Man. Yeah.
It
is Ant-Man,
yeah. But yeah, this book is way bigger than when Ant-Man gets massive. This book,
That's pretty big.
yeah, exactly, and it's way smaller than Ant-Man when he's small. We should compare like how much we enjoy a book to the size of Ant-Man.
So we should just have
This is
different...
like a corgi-sized Ant-Man,
a
not this book,
corgi-sized-
obviously.
Oh, Nelly. I miss
Corgi
Nelly.
Man.
I want her back.
But thank you very much for watching.
She's our corgi, by the way.
Yeah.
People will be
Now
like,
it's-
who's Nelly?
Yeah, I think she was in this video.
Yeah, she was,
All
but
that time
we
ago.
didn't say her name.
I think I did.
Oh, maybe you did.
Maybe. Anyway, Boudica, Dream of the Eagle, my book one of the year, 2022. Please go out and read this. And Will is carrying on with the series, I think one per month, aren't you?
Yeah.
So read along with him as well. He's read book one, but please jump on the bandwagon and read the rest. We'd love to talk to more people about this series.
Yes,
if
we
you're going to pick
would.
up any books, this is the series to pick up. I think people who watch our channel obviously love fantasy, so you will absolutely adore this series. I bet you at least £5.
Is that a bet you're willing to uphold?
Yeah, but I will make a lot of money for that. Yeah.
Nice. I do believe you there. But everyone, thank you so much for watching and listening to us just rave about our favourite books. Hopefully there's a few books here that intrigued you, that caught your eye, that you may pick up. We would love to hear about your thoughts on any of these, whether you've read them or, as I said, if you will pick them up. And yeah, if you've got any recommendations of books that sound a bit similar, we'd also love that. We're really appreciative of people who leave comments in the description.
Yeah.
Not in the description, they leave comments on our videos about books that we should read, and they're added to my TBR. Picked up quite a few of them, and again, we're just so thankful. And 2022 was a great reading year, as you can see from this range of books that we've absolutely adored. Some they have brought us to tears, some they've crushed us. Not many, some have made us laugh, but more because of the dark, terrible things.
More than laughter.
We need to read more happier books.
Yeah, any happy books, please put them in.
Please do. But everyone, thanks so much for watching. Let us know some of your favourite reads of 2022. And truth and courage, stay safe.
Truth and
The
courage.
Brothers Gwynne.
Stay safe from the Brothers Gwynne. Happy reading.